The wall is so much more than a physical barrier in that it really is an emotional divide between the two countries, and it really separates people and separates cultures and is destroying families. So witnessing that right before me was really surreal.
You can read as many books as you want, but when you see the people actually there, when you see the bones, or when you see the people in the courtroom, or like the people in the shelter, until you see that, you don't really understand.
The way I would describe what we saw is kind of a circle of life.
You can see over into Mexico.
There's a lot of misinformation about the border and what goes on there. So this class was an opportunity to kind of be boots on the ground, have background information, reading information, and be able to see for ourselves what's really going on.
It was a really immersive experience looking at humanity face to face and how we interact with each other.
The purpose of the trip was to bring attention to the undocumented migrants that cross over the
Border
wall.
The wall
on the border,
To cross the border and
On the border.
the border and Mexico border.
the wall, and
It feels like a cage when you're looking at it.
you know, we're studying culture, we're trying to understand human behavior, and in the case of immigration, trying to understand from a critical perspective what some of the processes are behind just the fundamental decision of leaving behind everything you know, heading into the unknown.
It was insane to see these people being treated like violent criminals when the only crime they were guilty of was searching for a better life.
I really tried to think about the reasons why they were coming in the first place. And as we learned through the immigration class, we learned about a lot of push and pull factors that are impacting people's decisions, because it's not one that people take lightly. It involves years of planning, tons of money. They risk their lives, they risk their families' lives. And you'd have to think that their situation is pretty dire if they're willing to risk everything that they have, the whole culture and everything that they've known, to come to a new place where they might not even be accepted. I thought about that a lot, especially the day that we planted a cross for a migrant who had died.
It's trying to take something that obviously has multiple dimensions in this country, that is a lot of times a really dehumanizing sort of portrayal of the immigrant life, the immigrant experience, and then trying to rehumanize it for people.
People need to change it. Like we're treating human beings like animals. We're treating human beings like less than human. And people don't actually know what's happening, and I think people need to know.
And we're in an area there's a big wash through here, so it's a popular place for migrants to travel through. You know, humans don't live their lives through text. You can get some pictures of what it's like to be an immigrant. The portrayals that we get a lot of times come in statistics, come in numbers, and sometimes not even faces, so they're part of an abstract world. And that continues in the classroom. I try and do my best. We have some visuals in the classroom. But I think that sort of thing comes to life when you hear someone's voice, when you see that reality, wherever it is that you're seeing it.
Rigoberto Garcia Romero. He was 23 years of age, and he died of hyperthermia, which is what most people die out here.
It hits you pretty hard that this is someone that just was trying to do what a lot of other humans would try and do, and almost got there, and didn't make it. Those are images that are going to stay with you. You know, the numbers and stuff start to fade, but the faces and voices, I think, stick with you for a long time, and I think that's important. So in the daytime, I can walk around these things. Nighttime, probably obviously not as visible.
I think that it's something that you really need to see to believe. It's easy to read in a book that they traveled hundreds of miles and it doesn't become real until you're standing under the heat of the sun in the desert, surrounded by a vast nothingness. You have no sense of direction. It's crazy when you actually experience it for yourself.
So here's an area just up on the edge of the wash where there's part of an old backpack, a jacket. That's the truly energizing aspect of it, is to be there with students that are respectful, that are thoughtful, that are intelligent. It makes it all worthwhile. The ripple effect, hopefully, is that the more people that can go down and understand this, the more people that are talking to parents and friends and, writing and, who knows what careers our students are headed into. They are going to be decision makers, and they're going to be in a position where they can make an impact.
Something that I always noticed was that the wall, or at least the feeling that there was a wall between those two countries, was always present. Even if you couldn't see it, you could almost feel it. Because we were walking right by the wall, and you could see right through America on the other side, and you could see the hotels and the restaurants and the businesses, and then you were standing on this side and kind of looking over, and it was crazy that we were all under the same sky, and really it was like, 10 feet, maybe 5 feet separating those two parts, but it felt like completely divided worlds.
That also, I think, becomes extremely important, that these ripple effects continue once the sort of transformation has happened inside a person, that's felt well beyond that individual.
Knowing that I live in the US when there are so many people that will risk, all of their family's money, their own lives to get here, it makes me more grateful to be here, but it also makes me super angry. Because why should I be able to do that and other people shouldn't? It just makes me it makes me itch to change it.
Almost every single day I just had to sit back and take a breath and kind of sit there with the gravity of the situation and think about all these lives that are being lost. And all the lives that, even if they do end up making it to America, if they survive, if they are able to have a home, a part of them will always be back at home, and a part of them may never feel like they fully belong in America, because I think a big problem we have in this country is making people feel accepted who don't look like us, who don't speak the same language as us. So I think it comes down to having basic humanity for each other. And meeting each other where you're at.
This is tough stuff. Grateful to be alive, grateful to be here, even if it's hard.
I know that I'm privileged in being able to sit on a warm bed in a hotel room and sleep off the day. I haven't even experienced half of what migrants do, but I feel so heavy. My brain has turned to mush. I can do and say things only because I was born in the United States. I can't even articulate how confusing and stupid that is. This is a vital point in our history, and I know it'll be whitewashed. Interesting connection to the bleached white bones after they've been sitting in the desert.
As I sit writing this on the plane ride home from Phoenix, I can't help but recognize that I am not the same person who sat on a plane 1 week ago full of nervous excitement. I haven't begun to truly process all that I encountered and experienced this week. Arizona was a truly beautiful place, full of gorgeous landscapes, sunny weather, and some of the nicest people I've ever met. I felt relief on hot days when we could soak up the sun and warmth that was seriously lacking in Kentucky. Yet I was continually reminded that this is the same sun that cooks corpses. This is the same desert full of bones and death. Each refreshing breeze was the same wind that shifted human remains throughout the air, scattering them throughout the magnificent but hellish landscape. Exactly a week ago today, I considered myself pretty knowledgeable about the complex migrant experience, but I quickly realized that there are things you cannot comprehend in a classroom or a book. Nothing could have prepared me for seeing the wall in all its horror. As we cut down the hill when we first entered Nogales, Arizona, I felt my heart drop to my stomach. On the right were small and dilapidated shacks. On the left stood Burger Kings, paved roads to fancy hotels, America in all its glory. And in the middle ran a thin fortress, thin and horrifying, snaking its way through the landscape. Throughout the week, I came to see the wall as a disgustingly arbitrary thing that creates not only a physical barrier, but an emotional and human barrier between America and Mexico. Seeing the wall never got easier. In fact, it elicited strong emotions of sadness, disbelief, and anger. There are things from this trip that I will absolutely never forget. I will never forget how the sounds of chains echoed throughout the courtroom. I will never forget feeling utterly hopeless as I witnessed our justice system deport dozens of human lives at once. And I will never forget looking out into the desert landscape, watching the wall loom and dip, and coming to the realization that I would leave a piece of myself here at the wall.